A year and 10 days. When the children of Israel got out of Egypt, the Bible says God made a wind pass over the Red Sea, and it became dry land. And the water heaped up on each side, and they walked through the Red Sea. Remember that? How did that happen? He said he used a wind to do that. In Noah, in this story, it says that after the flood, God caused a wind to dry the earth again. Well, how long did it take to make a pathway through the Red Sea? It was done overnight. So if God's got the blow dryer on the earth, and you can make a road through the ocean in one night, why did it take him a whole year to dry up a local flood? I want to know. It wasn't a local flood. The whole planet was under 20 feet of water from the highest mountain. The wind was working overtime. Still took a year to dry the thing out. The size of the ark, universal language, God's promise, time on the ark. For our TV show and our question and answer segment, which comes at the end of the show, I was asked, is there any possibility that the local flood can be supported from the scriptures? I said, no, no possibility at all. There's a global flood, period. That's what the Bible teaches. Take it or leave it, but there's no room in there for a local flood. That's your first piece of evidence. It's from the Bible, which to me is the most powerful. Second piece of evidence for a universal flood. In addition to the biblical record from the children of Israel, there are 500 other peoples and cultures and records that talk about a global flood. Did you know that? Some 500. Listen to this. From the article, Flood Legends from Around the World, quote, native global stories are documented as history or legend in almost every region on Earth. Old World missionaries reported their amazement at finding remote tribes already possessing legends with tremendous similarities to the Bible's accounts of the worldwide flood. H.S. Bellamy, in Moon's Myths and Men, estimates that altogether there are over 500 flood legends worldwide. Ancient civilizations such as China, Babylonia, Wales, Russia, India, America, Hawaii, Scandinavia, Sumatra, Peru, Polynesia, on and on and on, all have their own versions of a giant flood. These flood tales are frequently linked by common elements that parallel the biblical account, including the warning of a coming flood, the construction of a boat. So all these accounts, most of them have a warning of a coming flood, the construction of a boat in advance, the storage of animals, the inclusion of Noah's family, the release of birds to determine if the water levels have subsided. The overwhelming consistency among flood legends found in distant parts of the globe indicates they were derived from the same origin, the Bible. But oral transcription has changed the details through time. I've got a thing here for you, a table. I know you can't read it, but let me show you what it says. Over top is a list of about a dozen different nations and people groups that span the globe with flood legends. Assyrio-Babylonia has 2, so that's the first 2. Persia, Syria, Asia Minor, Greece, Egypt, Italy, Lithuania, Russia, China, Indian, Cree, that's Canada, the Cree Indians, the Cherokee in the United States, the Papago in Mexico, the Aztecs in Mexico, Peru, the Leeward Islands, the Fiji Islands, and Hawaii. A nice cross-sampling of our globe. All have global flood legends. Now, what you have on this side are certain things that the Bible says happened in the flood. Man was in sin. Man was in transgression. Divine destruction. Favored family. Ark provided. Destruction by water. Humans saved. Animals saved. Universal destruction. Landing on a mountain. Birds sent out. Survivors worship God. Divine favor on those who are saved. And in the table, it'll tell you by the green box if that biblical data is represented in that foreign culture's story. Look at all the green boxes. The red triangles are when partial story data from the Bible is there. So for example, destruction by water. All of them say the entire world was destructed by water except the legend from Egypt, and that's only partial. And that's how that table works. It's an amazing thing. I'll be talking about Egypt in just a second. Now, how is it that virtually every culture on the planet has a global flood story if it didn't happen? Any suggestions? Write me a letter. I'd like to hear it. Because you don't go over every culture on the planet today and find a story that the whole world was devoured by fire once and only one family survived. I've never heard that story. Why isn't that in every culture if it's a myth? Or how about that once there was an entire race of 3 feet people on the planet and they all ate lollipops? Why not? If it's a myth, let's make a myth. You don't find that all over the world. What you find all over the world is the story that the entire planet was flooded by water and a family survived. Because it happened. And everyone who survived after Noah knew the story. So it went to all the cultures. It's common sense. It happened. Check this out. I got a picture for you. That is the Chinese symbol for boat. See, Chinese language is very interesting because it's not an alphabet, it's pictures together to form words. There's 3 words to form the word boat in the ancient Chinese kanji. These 3 words right in front of you are the words for vessel, person, and the number 8. 8 people in a vessel is the Chinese kanji for boat. Noah, Ham, Shem, Japheth, Japheth's wives, and Noah's wife. 8 people were on the ark. Isn't it interesting that one of the most ancient languages on the planet has that as its number, as its picture for boat? And I read an entire book on the Chinese kanji. It's called The Discovery of Genesis. Cool. Google it. Way cool. Just a whole book full of this kind of stuff. Like I think the one, if I remember right, for like joy or happiness is 2 people in a garden. It's just, their language is full of that stuff. Amazing how that happened when none of them were Jews to have read the book of Genesis, huh? Truth passes on from culture to culture. And the flood story is a true story, and that's why every culture has it. Strong evidence for a worldwide flood. The record of the Bible and those 4 things I shared with you under it. And perhaps as many as 500 other people groups and flood stories. Evidence number 3. Fossils. Do you know fossils are found all over the world? But how are fossils made, Steve? I read this for you. Let me read it again. From Columbia Encyclopedia. Quote, conditions conducive to the formation of fossils include quick burial in moist sediment. How do you make a fossil, Steve? You bury it very quickly in mud. That's how you make one, Steve. So could a flood make some fossils? Oh, yeah. The bigger the flood, the more fossils? Absolutely. Well, what if you find fossils on the top of a mountain? What if? I told you I'd get back to Egypt. How many of you have ever seen the Great Pyramid or the Sphinx? Let me see your hands. Come on, don't be shy. I'm not going to embarrass you. Let me see your hands. I don't mean you've been there. I mean you've seen a picture of them. Okay, there we go. Say, what are you guys, ignorant? No, I mean you've seen pictures of them. Okay, those guys right there. Listen to this, blew my mind. Up to 40% of these pyramids are made out of marine fossils. 40%. See, that's not just something I heard at 3 o'clock in the morning on a radio show that nobody trusts. This came from the Discovery News. Pyramids packed with fossil shells. Monday 28th, April 2008, Jennifer Viegas, Discovery News. Quote, let me read to you from the article. Many of Egypt's most famous monuments, such as the Sphinx and the Cheops Pyramid at Giza, contain hundreds of thousands of marine fossils, according to a new study. Most of the fossils are intact and preserved. The author suggests the stones must have been carved out of natural stone as they reveal what chunks of the seafloor must have looked like over 4,000 years ago. Where did they come up with that number over 4,000 years ago? That's the same number they gave me for the sequoia trees. It's the oldest sequoia trees are around 4,000 years old, and they said they've never found one to have died of natural causes. Isn't that interesting? Over 4,000 years ago, when the buildings were erected. So they believe these pyramids were erected over 4,000 years ago out of natural chunks of stone that are 40% fossil. Again, you've not been there, but how many of you have seen pictures of Egypt? Doesn't look much like an ocean, does it? They dug out chunks of rock and built these huge monuments, wonders of the world, and it's a testament to the story in the Bible. 40% marine fossils. If you can find fossils in the lowest desert and on the highest mountain and not believe in a global flood, I've got some real estate I want to sell you.